Hi. Welcome to Getting Rich Soon. I am Bridget. Today we're going to talk about if you are ready to buy a house or if you should keep renting. Yeah, I just wanted to give my own personal experience. I've had a couple of people ask me this question because we did buy a house last year and obviously bought at the time when the interest rates were crazy and everything. And I just gonna give advice to anyone who's willing to listen. Some of the things I did when it came to buying of our home and just in general research that I did before going into buying our home and comparing things and just advise if anyone is willing to listen and is in that position where they're undecided if they should buy a home or keep renting. Please, if you're here this time, if you don't mind hitting that subscribe button, I'll really appreciate it. Yes, home ownership is a great thing in the long run, right? It's very important. If you long-term goal is to own a home, I believe that you should keep working towards that goal. But also at the same time, home ownership can also take away from your wealth building capabilities if you get into it at the wrong time, right? The long-term goal is for you to own a home. I do believe everyone should own a home at some point if that's what you want to. But please don't get into it the wrong way or get into it at the wrong time because you are going to end up being house poor. Yes, there are a lot of rules out there when it comes to buying a home, but I feel like the best way when buying a home that will bring you peace of mind. A lot of times people will say you should look at your gross income, right? When it comes to buying a home, that's even the mortgages when you're trying to take a mortgage, or even the real estate person is looking at like your gross income to buy a home. The beauty about a gross income is it makes it possible for you and I, especially coming from a background where you don't have money, to be able to afford a bigger home because they're looking at your gross income. But if you're going to buy a home and you are realistic to yourself and you look at it from your net income, it will be better for you. Why? Because the truth is, when you look at your gross income, it's very easy for you to think that you can actually make those payments, not factoring the fact that you have taxes that are being taken out of that gross income. Some people have insurance, like just their health insurance, other things that are being taken out before they get their net income. But if you use your net income, let's say, for example, if you are single, for example, and you were looking at buying a home, and let's say your take home pay a month, I go by the net income, your take home pay was roughly around $4,000 a month. But your gross income, for example, was $5,000 a month, right? If you're basing it off the $5,000 a month, you will actually will qualify for a bigger home, right? But if you're being realistic to yourself and you're trying to prevent, the banks will obviously base it off your gross income, but it's for you to sit down and base it off your net income, which is the $4,000 a month. Reason being, if you base it off $4,000 a month, now you come in and in that $4,000, that's your take home pay. You're still going to budget out of that $4,000, right? How much does it cost you to eat a month, for example? How much is other expenses? Do you pay your health insurance out of that $4,000? How much do you save? At this point, I would still say that you should be strict and diligent and put your savings as an expense. You subtract that. Let's say, for example, you're currently paying rent at 1.5 if you're single. I know most one bedroom apartments right now do go for 1.5, right? If you are paying rent at 1.5 and you subtract that 1.5 and you decide that no, I don't want to pay rent at 1.5, or you decide that, well, my mortgage, I don't want my mortgage to be above $2,000. So if you don't want your mortgage to be above $2,000, you're gonna now, that will help you to be able to narrow down like how much home can you afford? If the interest rates are of a mortgage are around, let's say 7%, then that's really going to reduce the amount of house you can afford. So when you actually go in to start looking at homes that you can afford, now you have to start narrowing it down, like, okay, this neighborhood I obviously cannot afford to live in this neighborhood. The reason why I want you to do your math, like, you should have your cutoff of how much you're willing to pay in mortgage. And also the mortgage, what should be included in your mortgage? Your mortgage should have which is pretty much your house expense at that point, should definitely be factoring in how much you're willing to pay for the home insurance, the property taxes, as well as the mortgage and the interest of that home. So if you have put a cap that is going to be 2,500 or $2,000 a month, that's your cap. That's when you go in and start looking for homes within that range, right? Because you don't want to go in with your real estate person and then you start looking for homes, and then it's like they look at your gross income and they start telling you, oh, you can afford a $500,000 house, when a $500,000 house is going to come down with a total mortgage payment of, like, let's say 3,500, $4,000, based on what your interest rates will be, because your interest rates do play a great factor into how much you can afford as a home. But if you put a cap to yourself, when you wouldn't go looking for houses in an expensive neighborhood, right? Or even if you go to an expensive neighborhood, sometimes you will know what your cap is and stuff. And also, if it's a first time, if you're going to be a first time home buyer, you know you are ready to afford a house. If you normally, the best way to buying a home is if you can put down at least 20% of the cost of the home. Reason being, if you can put down 20%, you'll be able to avoid what is called PMI, which is a private mortgage insurance, which is pretty much, it's money that I can say you're throwing away because you are paying this money to the banks, and it's not even going to subtract your actual loan. It's just you paying them extra insurance money because you were not able to put 20% down. There are some people, if you're a veteran, military, at least you first time home buyers that are unable to put down at least 20% down tend to avoid this PMI because of the veterans mortgage, right? The VA mortgage that they benefit from. But you will know you are ready to afford a home. If you cannot put down 20%, you should at least be able to put down 3 to 5% of the cost of the home you're trying to buy. So if you are asking yourself, is now a good time for me to buy a home, or should I keep renting? The number one thing I'm going to ask you is, are you willing to, wherever you're trying to buy the home, are you ready to live in that neighborhood for at least 3 to 5 years? If you think you're going to be changing a job within that time frame, before 3 to 5 years, 5 to 7 years, if you know you're going to be changing jobs before 5 to 7 years, then I would say that you are not ready to buy a home at that time, because it's not good to buy a home and you actually not leave and give your home time to raise equity. Also, at the same time, buying a home, if you buy a home and you sell very fast, you can actually lose money, because just the cost of buying a home, because people focus so much about the home price itself, but there's actually closing costs that goes into buying a home. So if you're not willing to live in that area for 5 to 7 years, I would say you're not ready to buy a home. Also, if you don't have at least 3%, 3 to 5% of the money saved down towards the cost of a home you're willing to buy, I will also say that you are not ready to buy a home. Then again, the goal is not to have you home poor, because a lot of times people will say that, oh, I am wasting money renting, right? But one thing you need to also pay attention to is the rents you're gonna pay is the highest amount you will pay while you pay a month towards home ownership, right? But if you're paying a mortgage, the mortgage is the least amount you will pay towards home ownership. The reason why I say this is because if you were renting, right? Let's say your rent was like 1.5 and your toilet broke. Who fixes that toilet? It's the rental company, right, that fixes the toilet. But if you were a homeowner and your toilet broke, now that's an additional cost to you because you have to figure out about fixing the toilet. Also, if your AC went down, which it tends to happen a lot when people buy older homes, then that cost is an additional cost to you. So in regards to even having to the 3 to 5% of or put down towards the home, you also want to have an emergency fund sitting aside to cover any home repairs, right? Also, you want to also factor in the fact that mortgage insurance is going to keep going up yearly. Your property taxes are going to go up yearly. So if you are not in a good situation, financial situation where you've at least put a good amount of money to the side, I would say that rather than rushing into a home where you're going to be home broke, why not cut down your costs? If you're living in an apartment right now and you feel like it's really expensive, do it in such a way that can you get a roommate just for a temporary period of time. While you get that roommate, it's going to help you. Instead of paying all that money towards rent, you can actually start setting that money to the side to help you with your goal of having a home ownership at some point. Also, people will be like, I don't know if I should take a 15-year mortgage or if I should take a 30-year mortgage. A 15-year mortgage is really good, right? But if we're being realistic to ourselves, a lot of us cannot afford the payments that come with a 15-year mortgage, right? So the advice, if you are in that situation, I would say that you should take a 30-year mortgage, but you should have the mentality of paying off that home in 15 years. The reason why I would say you should take a 30-year mortgage is in the sense that, let's say, for example, if you took a 30-year mortgage, it makes your monthly payments a lot lower. But when you're doing your calculation of your home, like for example, I did this for myself. I did, when we were trying to buy a home, I did set how much I was willing to spend a month. In fact, actually, when I was trying to trying to buy a home, we legitimately based off the home cost on one income, because I was just like, we're going to run this through on one income. It's like, how much is the mortgage going to be, the entire cost of running the home, so that the other person's income, since we have kids, will be there to run any other issues, right? And also, I did factor in the fact that I wanted us, even though we were taking a 30-year mortgage, I wanted us to be able to put in an extra amount of payment towards just the principal of the home itself, so that we can be able to pay the home a lot faster. Because the truth is, if I didn't do it that way, we will if you put in the cost, it will be like, oh, you can really buy a very expensive home. And then you realize that it will take you years upon years just to pay that home off, and you are not even investing. But if you factor in that you want to be able to make extra payments toward the mortgage of that home, it's going to help you pay off your home a lot faster. So these are the things you should factor in when you're deciding if you should buy a home or if you should keep renting. First, you ask yourself, am I willing to live in this area for 5 to 7 years? If you have kids, what are the schools in this area? Are they good schools for my children? Do you have at least, if you're a first time home buyer, do you have at least 3 to 5% down, or 3 to 5% that you can put down towards that home? If you don't have that, I would say, please don't go get a home because you're going to be home broke. You keep renting, cut down your renting costs as much as possible, and save this money. Also, the next thing you need to look at, the factor in the fact that things might break in this home. Do you have a good emergency fund set aside? Do you have a good amount of money set aside towards the closing costs? If you cannot check yes to these boxes, I would say that you are not ready to own a home. And it's not a bad thing. That should be a bear in your head that now is a good time for me to sit down and work on this thing so that when I finally own a home, it's not a stress factor to me. It's not one of those things that will make you home poor. Because the truth is, a lot of people own homes and they are not even able to keep investing. Why? Because every dime that they make keeps going towards the payment of their homes. They cannot even afford an extra $500, an extra $200 a month. If that's the situation, please don't get into home ownership because it's going to be a stress factor. Thank you for stopping by. And I pray that we all can be homeowners because it's a good thing in the long run. But please don't rush into it. Take your time. Be smart about it. Love you. Hit the subscribe button and please share your comments. Thank you.